This ground has been walked over by many, many tribes. At times, it's very frustrating for us as Native people because it seems like a building might take precedence over our ancestors' burial grounds. Sometimes they want to dig it up and then they take it to a museum and they archive it, where our intent is to leave them be.
The Department of Natural Resources manages about 5 million acres. In that Minnesota landscape, there are a number of Minnesota tribal nations. And part of the work we do, it's our requirement to evaluate historical sites. And that's great if they're documented, but every once in a while we come across a site that was not documented. And that creates some conflict between the tribes and department staff in trying to identify how do we decide how to continue with management while respecting these traditional cultural places and practices. And that was kind of the intent of this workshop. We partnered with the University of Minnesota Sustainable Forest Education Cooperative, as well as our DNR archaeologist who works for the State Historic Society, Mike Magner, Jim Cummings, who works both at Mille Lacs State Park as well as at the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, Terry Kemper, who's with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, who really is the center point of these workshops. Participants get an opportunity to hear from a tribal elder how we can do a better job as resource managers to protect those tribal cultural places and practices.
We know that this lake, Ogeechee, was a very big ricing lake at one time. So all around here, these little pits and these little holes would have been what they used for dancing on the rice to honor that rice and that river, that lake. There's high potential sites everywhere. That's what the training's all about, is for you to see it for yourself and try to get your mind into looking at this landscape in a different way. But not only that, it's waking up to what's in that area, what's in the woods here. See, this thing out here is an ecosystem that will help you out. We used to be able to see it, and now we don't. But what's happening is we're coming back to being able to see it. I think a lot of companies and a lot of different people are disconnected from the outside world, and they don't really spend time in the woods. And I try to teach people that out here, the birds live, the animals live, and this is their home. That's the first teaching that we give, is to respect this place that you come to.
I think a lot of people, when they're registering for the workshop, think that they're going to get kind of a technical overview of how to differentiate these different features. It might be burial mounds, it might be food cache sites. We do a little bit of that, but honestly, the workshop goes a lot deeper than that. We all have connections to those who came before us, and the kinds of things we hear from Terry really help land managers to relate from our own cultural perspectives, whatever those might be, and develop a deeper understanding and I think a deeper sense of empathy for the meaning of those features to our American Indian partners and neighbors.
Archaeologists are trained in a certain way, and we're trained to look for certain things, but we don't have that tribal cultural life passed on generation from generation. What people really want to hear and what they need to hear is Terry's perspective, and we're just there to help guide the conversation a little bit. These are sacred places, this is a sacred experience, and people have been really respectful of that, and that's been really encouraging.
Terry is able to foster conversations that are not always easy to have because sometimes we get defensive or we don't understand each other well.
We should work together. We live right next to each other. You know, we go to each other's schools, we go to each other's institutions, and yet they don't know us. And I think that this training really bridges that gap.
Just today, a forester reached out to our archaeologist and said, hey, I think I've discovered some food storage pits that I saw firsthand at the workshop. So, you know, people are already starting to look for things in the work that they do.
So far, we've only offered this workshop at Mille Lacs-Cathio State Park, but we do plan to move around to other parts of the state. There are different histories and different stories to be told in different places. And one of the things we really focus on during the workshop is the need not to think that you have the answers, but when you find yourself asking a question or wondering, is this what I think it is? To reach out to the local tribal historic preservation officer and to really recognize that building relationships, viewing ourselves really as in this together, is going to be the best for all of us.